I started trying to find the rights for Plumbers Don't Wear Ties back in 2016. And I thought that it was with whoever owned Kieran Entertainment, which was the publisher on 3DO. So I looked up Kieran Entertainment. I went through all of these records with the California Secretary of State. I found all of these business records that were associated with Kieran Entertainment. It was like Digital Stuff Incorporated and all these weird things I've never heard of. And I tried everything I could in my power to reach out to these people. I signed up for white pages. I got phone numbers. I cold called those phone numbers. I sent mail to the registered address of these companies, and the registered address of like whatever their most recent company was is actually just a random empty plot of land on the side of a highway. There is no mailbox there. There is nothing to actually receive mail. So of course my mail came back like 2 months later as undeliverable because there was nowhere to put it. Like, I almost feel like these people don't exist. I don't know, but I could not get in touch with these people. So after 4 years of trying that, I wrote to our lawyer and I said, hey, what recommendations do you have to figuring out who has the rights? And he was like, did you search the copyright database? And I guess I was just really stupid and I never searched the copyright database. I'd always searched the trademark database, which doesn't really provide you with a lot of information. But the copyright database will have emails occasionally. So I was able to find the copyright for Plumbers Don't Wear Ties. And then there was this name on it for the guy who had started United Pictures, which was the developer of the game. And clicked on his name and I got some other things like a diet program he had developed. So I clicked on that and then boom, his email address was there for this diet program copyright. And I was like, holy shit, I've got the way to contact whoever has the copyright. So I emailed him and he was like, wow, I'm surprised anyone is interested in this. And, within a couple weeks, it was all negotiated and done. And we were able to pick up the rights to restore and remaster Plumbers Don't Wear Ties. And I felt this weight lifted off my shoulders. I felt this, 4 years of effort just finally coming together.
We believe we can contextualize this game in an interesting way that will make it not only like the best way to consume the game, but to understand what it was, how it could have happened. We found that idea super fascinating.
So I discovered Plumbers at work. It was something that was floating around at the time, and Joe, he basically was like, hey, you want to know what this is? And he sent me the link to a video by Angry Video Game Nerd that I thought was very funny, very well made. And I was intrigued. I was like, if this is something that we're bringing back, I want to be a part of it.
When you look at a game like this, it's easy to assume from an outside perspective that, well, it is just still images. It is just audio files being played back. That seems like basically 2 lines of code. However, there's so much more to it because the actual timing of the audio and images is somewhat finicky. The tools back then were much more in line of doing some operations like this in terms of FMV gaming, in terms of audio playback. Nowadays, these engines are much more about pushing polygons and allowing for much bigger games. When you actually have to scale it down to something this simple, it leads to a lot of interesting challenges that you don't foresee.
Top level, when you're looking at what you need to do, it's pretty straightforward. But actually coding it out was a little bit difficult because Unity doesn't necessarily have like a timer function. You have to build all of that from scratch and make sure that things flow correctly into each other. So there was a little bit of headache of making sure that, okay, this scene needs to follow up after this scene. And sometimes you mess up. So you got to really go and figure out, okay, what broke.
There's some fan assets and sites that show a lot of the differences between the 3DO and the PC version, and then include information about like the timestamps and stuff like that. Things that made it super useful for us to very quickly break apart the game and rebuild it exactly how it was, right down to like the millisecond of how these things are timed out.
We were given a lot of assets from the older title, even lots of code too, but it was very difficult to understand how to implement that in something like GameMaker or Unity, so we had to start from scratch. One of the biggest and most difficult things that we had to figure out was allowing the player to essentially skip through some of the scenes. just so that they don't have to sit through one that they've maybe already seen. They can just skip right to the decision part of it, or just skip to the next scene. That was a little bit difficult, trying to get that to work with the timer, making sure that when we did skip, we reset the timer.
We made a decision early on that, like, obviously we never wanted to try and approach this game by just putting it back out exactly as it was. We don't think there's a lot of value in that package, even if you remaster like the photos and the one video that's in there. So it basically became like, well, what can we do to create a value around this? And the value we thought that made the most sense was playing it very straight, contextualizing and telling a story about how this game exists, finding the right people who would have something meaningful to say about it, and maybe using it to make a living history piece as opposed to just a remastered version of an old game.
You shouldn't spend money on that original version because it's hundreds of dollars and very hard to seek out. But with this limited run version, it is as easy as either downloading it digitally or preferably buying it physically to own in your own collection as this curiosity in video games. And I think that's the legacy it leaves behind, is that it's one of the biggest curiosities, especially in the Western hemisphere of video gaming. It's kind of like crazy that something like this happened. It's even crazier that it was brought back in 2022.
I like doing unexpected things, and I feel like providing a remaster to this level of Plumbers Don't Wear Ties is a very unexpected thing. So that's really what has always been on my mind with regards to Plumbers Don't Wear Ties. But if this is successful, I would love to be able to look into doing more with it. If there ends up being demand for a sequel, a Plumbers Still Don't Wear Ties, we could do that. Because I actually, I was reading while I was researching the IP on Google that there was actually plans for a second Plumbers Don't Wear Ties, and some assets may actually exist for that floating around in the ether. But this kind of goes hand in hand with trying to find the IP. A lot of the people that worked on the game are kind of like lost to time. Even the people that I have found from that game, like they don't list United Pictures on their resume. So it's like, how do you find these people? You can't really. So I don't know if stuff for Plumbers Don't Wear Ties 2 will ever turn up, but if there's a possibility to make a second one and the business warrants it, I would certainly do it. Again, I think that would be super unexpected.